Welcome to Maths on Radio, a program catalyzed and supported by National Council for Science and Technology Communication, Department of Science and Technology, New Delhi.
कॉलेज की चार दीवारियों में अजब सा खेल होता है. खेल ही खेल में दिलों का मेल होता है. इसलिए तो हर साल पप्पू फेल होता है. पर हाँ, पप्पू दिलों के मेल से नहीं, मैथ्स की झोल से फेल होता है.
क्या?
तो अगर आप भी मैथ्स में फेल नहीं होना चाहते तो सुनते रहे 107.8 FM हर रोज सुबह 9 बजे, दोपहर 2 बजे और शाम को 7 बजे. आपके ज्ञान का डोज हर रोज.
Welcome to another episode of Maths on Radio Season 2. Today we have with us Kabir.
Thank you, Aniket, and good morning to you.
Yeah, so in the last episode we looked at the IPL auctions and Kabir spoke about how the batsmen were picked up. What were the factors influencing the teams in buying different batsmen? Also we looked at whether them being all-rounders influenced their decisions so much. In this episode we have Kabir with us to talk about bowling.
Yeah, a little bit of recap, if you will, because I also have a short memory, so I forgot. But then when I started thinking about the last episode, which we did a while back, we spoke about how the IPL regression analysis that we run was to check what factors influence the price of a player. So this was done in 2011, and this was for the 2011 auction, which was the second auction, I think.
Yeah, this was the second time auction when all the players were in the pool. So
yeah,
wherein you had every player in all the teams again being auctioned.
So yeah, so in that we checked what all factors contribute. So in the last episode we spoke about the batting aspect of it and how the batsman's price were affected and what are the factors. So one of those factors which we took was average multiplied by strike rate. Now this is slightly because T20 cricket was also new at that time and not much data was available. So we used one-day international data. We did not use T20 data because that was very little, only 10-15 matches per player. So we look at, and in the T20 format, more than in any other format, strike rate becomes important because you have to score quickly. So that's why we took a combination of average and strike rate.
Yeah, so this is not a conventional stat used in cricket, Kabir, as far as I know.
Yeah, because
what
even now...
What prompted you to choose this combination?
Because we thought that in T20 cricket, since it's a short format, 20 overs, strike rate becomes very important. So, and average becomes less important. So, for example, if you have someone with an average of 40 and a strike rate of 90, he might actually be hampering his team's prospect because he's eating up a lot of balls. So, someone with an average of 30 and a strike rate of 120 might be better. So, average alone isn't enough. That is why we used average into strike rate.
But then, why not strike rate alone?
Because then you will have someone like Shahid Afridi perhaps, or I can't think at the top of my head of a worse example, but someone with a strike rate of 200 and an average of 5. And then that is also not very good. So he's batting for like 2 balls and scoring 12 runs. But that's not good enough.
Yes. This analysis also proved that the older players weren't really being paid well?
No, it actually proved quite the contrary. That the age wasn't important in influencing price. That it wasn't statistically significant. So if you look at our training as economists, then it wasn't significant. But if you look at just the Excel sheet and then if you try and see, then it was. There was a factor that the older players were getting paid less, but there were players like Michael Hussey, Matthew Hayden, Muralitharan who got paid a lot of money despite their age. Okay. So those were few and far between. If you just look at generally, then yes, age did reduce your chances of earning big money.
So again, where maths and stats proved that your average look at the data isn't all, and a statistical regression will tell you a lot more about the same data. So now can we move on to...
Yes, there was one aspect which we missed last time, which we also looked at, was the all-rounder part. So when we are doing this analysis for batsmen and bowlers, we separated batsmen and bowlers, and we also looked at whether a batsman or a bowler was also an all-rounder. So if it is a batsman, then we had a minimum qualifying that if he has taken a certain number of wickets, and if he qualifies to be an all-rounder, then we took that as a dummy variable, which is a yes or no. If he's an all-rounder, yes or no. Similarly for bowlers, we saw if there's a certain number of runs at a certain average that he scored, then he is a all-rounder as well. So that is another factor. So we saw that all-rounders were getting paid a lot more, because in this format it becomes if you're able to do two jobs, then it becomes much more better for the
Yeah, I think so. Like you have a New Zealand team, I think that bats right up to 10 or 11 these days. So we are increasingly moving towards multiple capabilities rather than specializations, I guess.
Especially in the shorter format, these players become very important, because a bowler can have a bad day, and then in Test cricket there's time for the bowler to come back. But in T20 there's not enough time for him to come back. So if he has a bad first over, then the captain will like to have other options.
Okay, yeah. So basically, the fact that a bowler can only bowl 24 balls, unlike Test cricket where he can perhaps bowl all day long.
Yeah, and he can come back later, after tea or something, after 6 hours you can come back. It's the beauty of cricket, that a game goes on for 5 days, almost a week.
Yeah, but then Test cricket also has its beautiful bits that a session gone wrong does influence all the 5 days.
Yeah.
And that is, the Test cricket brings us to bowling, because you can't win a Test match without taking 20 wickets. So, how much ever you bat in Test cricket, but then a match is only won when you take all the 20 wickets, isn't it, Kabir?
Yeah. And then we in India should know that very well, because we have always had very good batsmen, but hard to find good bowlers.
Absolutely. That's why I think the India-Pakistan dream team is always imagined with the Pakistani bowling attack and the Indian batsmen.
That is true.
But so going on towards bowling, so what were the factors that actually influenced picking up of bowlers in the 2011 auction?
So we looked at, again, like we did in the batting part, we had average and strike rate. So generally, if you look at bowlers in traditional analysis, you only take the average or the strike rate. We in this analysis did not take the average at all. We only took the strike rate and the economy rate, a multiplication of the strike rate and economy rate. The reason why we did not take averages is essentially runs per wicket. So strike rate is getting you also number of balls per wicket, which is very important. And economy rate will also give you number of runs that the bowler is given away.
So you basically mean that due to the shorter format of the game, the runs between wickets don't matter as much as the strike rate does. Like
as much as the strike rate. As much as the balls per wicket matter.
Yeah, because there's less number of balls basically, is that what you mean?
Yeah, and also we are taking care of the runs given away by the bowler through the economy rate. So that is why we are not totally ignoring that aspect. So because it is very important. An economy rate of less than 6 is fabulous. It's more valuable than a Chris Gayle perhaps in T20 cricket. A bowler who bowls at less than 6 runs per over. So strike rate and economy rate, a combination of that we felt was quite robust and quite a good tool to analyze and judge bowlers.
So again, like batting, wherein you went with average and strike rate, you developed a statistic on your own that's not conventionally used in cricket.
Yeah, so strike rate and economy rate we took, and it threw up some very interesting answers. So a bowler with generally this is what we have seen in one-day cricket, that a bowler who has a good strike rate will have a higher economy rate. That is, so if you look at our Indian bowlers, you have the example of Ajit Agarkar.
Would be one, yeah.
So Ajit Agarkar has a good strike rate but a high
horrible economy rate.
Similarly, Brett Lee and Shoaib Akhtar also. They also fall in the same category.
But I'm sure they did not concede a last ball boundary like Ajit Agarkar did.
Did they?
Do you remember the Ramnaresh Sarwan inning wherein we lost the West Indies India series with Ajit Agarkar? The full toss, of course.
Yeah, so
I think we have a tradition of full tosses, isn't it? I think Chetan Chauhan was the guy who inspired him.
Chetan Sharma,
yeah. So, again,
so then you have these kind of bowlers who have a very good strike rate but a horrible economy rate. Then you have the other kind, the Muralitharan kind, who are very good at both. So their strike
but aren't they like outliers?
They are, yes. They are very few and far between.
You like, especially being an Indian, I think we are just down to a mini-max strategy where we are trying to just at least दोनों में से एक तो हो जाए तो अच्छा है, kind of a scenario.
Yes, in India we would be doing. I think most of the bowlers are like that. You only have very few Muralitharans in the world. No one actually as of now.
I think Shane Bond in his prime.
Shane Bond, but he also had a high economy rate.
Shane Bond has a bad economy rate?
I think all fast bowlers, the faster they are, they tend to have a high economy rate. Very few fast bowlers have a low economy rate.
Maybe because the spinners have a lot more control.
Perhaps.
And then they don't give them the pace. Like a Shane Bond bowling a wide ball just adds 5 to his runs with an extra. On the other hand, Muralitharan will never have something like that.
Muralitharan, even Shane Bond. Anil Kumble was a good example, but he never had a good strike rate. but spinners tend to have a lower strike rate. So we looked at that aspect, and Muralitharan, as expected, came out on top over there. Ajit Agarkar was quite high up there as well. Glenn McGrath was there. So what we did was that both the strike rate and economy rate were equally important. That is the assumption, and we hadn't seen a lot of T20 cricket at that time, so we did not know if it's true. But it turns out that it is quite true that both of them are equally important. You have a Dale Steyn with a very good strike rate and also a good economy rate. Okay. And then we looked at the number of wickets taken, the overs bowled.
But okay, now wasn't there a correlation between the strike rate and the wickets, because aren't like influenced by the same factor?
That is true. So the strike rate does take care of that aspect as well. But if you then get into the experience part of it, the number of wickets taken overall. So will a person with 300 wickets and a strike rate of 30 would be better than someone with 100 wickets and a strike rate of 30. So that is why we took wickets as well.
Okay, for the experience, for the learning factor, something like that.
How many games? And
but then that again would be adjusted by the age, because the more the wickets, usually the more the age, right?
But there would be certain players like Brad Hogg at the age of 36 hadn't played a lot of international games. So there would be players so age will not, it will only take care of that till an extent, but not completely.
Okay.
Number of wickets taken, number of overs bowled will take care of that.
Okay. So how was age? Because
age was again,
as you spoke with the batsmen, I think bowlers, like especially fast bowlers, are going to be drastically affected by age, much more than any other player, like fielders or batsmen or bowlers, spinners for that matter. So how did that influence? Is a Glenn McGrath still as valuable as he would have been like 10 years ago?
Well, he was valuable. He was, I think, 38 at that time. He was still he did not get the kind of money which a Dale Steyn got or a Muralitharan got. Muralitharan being the same age, but because fast bowling is a harder job, so you don't expect them to be playing for another 3 years.
And Dale Steyn, I think at that point of time, was by far the world's best bowler.
He still is.
No, but I think like he's like there are signs that he's tapering down. But that like 28,
that
2008
that
to
was
2013. He was absolutely lethal. Like a Dale Steyn in swinging or out swinging Yorker was just unplayable that time.
Yeah. So there was Mohammad Asif at that time, who also got big money. Glenn McGrath and Mohammad Asif played for the same team and very similar bowlers.
Mohammad Asif played in 2011. Are you sure about that? Because
no. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Would have been,
that was the first auction. That was the first
auction, because Mohammad Asif, of course, was brilliant when he played in the IPL. I think even the round arm action, the left-handed guy was brilliant. I think
Sohail Tanveer,
with the wrong-footed action guy. So, but then I think we do miss the Pakistanis, don't we?
We definitely do. And they add a lot of spice to the IPL. But the BCCI keeps trying very hard to add their own spice to it.
Yeah, of course. I think that's the biggest soap opera that goes on Indian television, with a new death coming in this week.
Oh yes, and new death means new games to be played.
Yes.
But apart from that, focusing on the cricket, so we looked at age, and age was important again, and it becomes more important for bowlers because their job is slightly more physically demanding than batsmen. You can have a batsman like Inzamam ul Haq who can barely run, but you cannot have a bowler like that.
Yeah, of course.
So that is why their job becomes difficult, and age becomes slightly more important for when you look at bowlers. And we also saw that bowlers were getting paid less overall on an average than batsmen.
Okay, so this is like the actor and actress thing in Bollywood.
It could be compared.
Even though they would play a similar amount of screen time, and perhaps bowlers sometimes do play a lot more crucial role than the batsmen.
They do, but in T20 cricket, if you look at it rationally, they only have 24 balls to influence the game. A batsman doesn't have that.
Yeah, I remember Ishan Sharma. I think the maximum potential balls he could bowl, I think he was getting paid some lakhs per ball because he went on a very high sum.
Yeah.
And then if you multiply the number of games he could have played by 24, there was still a limited number of balls.
Yes.
So that divisor gave us a number in lakhs. So every ball he got paid something like 4 or 5 lakh.
Yeah. So that is what we saw as well, that bowlers can only bowl 24 balls, and that is the only time they can influence. And it also depending on the pitch. Even Dale Steyn is going to get hit if the pitch is flat.
But then looking at it the other way around, like a Chris Gayle batting 20 overs wins you the game, but then a Dale Steyn can run through a lineup.
So that
in
is
his
the
4
gamble
overs.
that you have to take on that auction table. But I don't think by that time the teams had gotten the hang of what.
Yeah,
the
I think
auction is
that
about.
kind of data was also not available. It was just 3 years.
And
so
the game was also new, so they were only discovering.
Yeah, I remember, in fact, when the T20 cricket came about and in 2003 in England, and then everyone predicted the death of spinners. In 2015, we realized that spinners are by far the best bowling category.
Yeah, they are the most important. The team with the more spinners always, Chennai Super Kings has 3 or 4 spinners.
And Amit Mishra is the guy who's taken a hat-trick.
So many Rohit Sharma, Yuvraj Singh have taken hat-tricks in IPL. So yeah, that kind of, so at that time, exactly like you're saying, that we had a lot of misconceptions and we had a lot of prejudices perhaps against T20 cricket and what kind of cricket it's going to bring, and that did not happen. So even the teams sitting on the auction table looking at potential buys were focusing, like you said, on batsmen and people who could hit sixes. But it turned out that people with the smart buys were actually guys like Chennai Super Kings and Rajasthan Royals, who were taking, who were going for players with and assigning them particular roles.
But I remember, what was tending to happen was, with the number of foreigners restricted, Kabir, I think another thing that you missed about Chennai Super Kings was the fact that they had the best Indian players.
Yes.
Because what my hypothesis was that the 4 foreigners kind of outdid each other. Because all the other countries represented only 4 foreigners, all the teams had good foreign players. What started mattering a lot more was how their Indian contingent performed, because they were in majority. And so Chennai Super Kings with a Raina and a Dhoni kind of had all the aces up their sleeves.
Yes, exactly, you're right. And that is the other part of our analysis which we looked at, the nationality. And the nationality response was yes or no, Indian or not.
Oh yeah,
So
that's the other question that I was going to ask. Was it binary, or does it matter that there was a difference between West Indians and Australians?
No, we looked at that, but if we go down to the Excel, then we can find that the Australians did get paid a little bit, but maybe because they were also
the world champion factor would come into play.
But yeah, in the end analysis we only looked at yes or no, Indian or not. So Indians were getting paid a lot more money than because there was a scarcity rent that they were extracting, because there were 7 players required to be Indians out in every 11, which makes it 7 into 56 and top quality players, and you do not have 56 top quality Indian players, you only have 20 at the most. So then that meant that a lot of players were getting a lot, like for example Gautam Gambhir, I remember in that auction was the one who got $2.4 million. Yusuf Pathan got paid $2 million. Robin Uthappa 1.7, and Robin Uthappa wasn't even in the Indian team. And similarly, after those auctions we have seen Dinesh Karthik getting the same amount of money in every auction, and he's not even a part of the Indian team. So that is why being an Indian becomes very important for the Indian Premier League, and you get a lot more money if you are an Indian.
So Kabir, wearing your hat of an economist, this basically was a clear-cut example of a market inconsistency or a market imperfection, as we call it, isn't it?
An enforced imperfection in the market. But they have their rules, they have their reasons to be doing that. But the analysis proved, and which is rational as well. If you look at it, if you need 7 Indian players, then you will obviously want the best, and you'll be willing to pay an extra amount for them.
Yeah, I think also it serves the grassroots well. Like say Dinesh Karthik, even without representing the Indian team, would now make a good living.
Yes.
That basically is a lot of hope for the upcoming youngsters, because only 11 players out of 1.3 billion get selected for the Indian national team. And earlier the case was that only when you could represent the national team is when you could earn enough money, because the Ranji players didn't ever earn well, I think.
Yes. Yeah, and I remember one example who was Dinesh Karthik has represented India for quite a long time, but there was Saurabh Tiwari, who has only played 1 or 2 games for India, and that is also perhaps because he looks like Dhoni. He's from Jharkhand. He got $1.6 million, and now I don't think he's even a part of any IPL team. So that was another example of Ranji players, getting recognized and getting paid well for doing well in the Ranji season. So they don't get a lot of money when they're playing, and IPL is a source of earning for them. Yeah. So that is, Amit Mishra also got a a new lease of life through the IPL.
Yeah, he reinvented himself and completely showed us a side of his that was not seen in the test arena.
And then, like you said, that we used to think that the spinners are going to die and the spinners are going to get hit all over the ground. And especially in a country like India where the grounds are small, it's easier to hit the spinners. But that did not happen. The best bowlers have been spinners for a long time. Sunil Narayan has been the purple cap winner for a long time.
Yeah. Sunil Narayan, I think, is quite an outlier in that.
And that's why they have banned him now. So anyone doing well has to be suspect.
Well, Kabir, I think the next time you can basically do a mathematical analysis of the BCCI politics and how the zonal voting system works and how you get elected to be the president.
There could be something. It could be very interesting. It could be very interesting to see that, and it could be some.
I think it's much more a complicated sum than the simple things that we do here. But then we have political bosses who are experts of this, and they are, I think, born with it without needing any game theoretical tools.
Yeah, they are born with it. They can see the entire thing. And the other one other variable which was again important, like I mentioned in the batsmen, was all-rounders. So all-round bowlers who could bat will get paid more.
So Irfan Pathan is what comes to my mind.
Yes, Irfan Pathan got paid a lot of money in that auction. I don't remember. I think he was picked up by Delhi Daredevils and he got paid a lot of money because of that reason. And other people like that as well.
So Irfan Pathan mathematically was your ideal.
Yes, mathematically. Yes.
Mathematically, I think he must be your ideal model to be picked up. The right nationality. I think he was in the right age that time. I think picked up wickets, scored some runs, scored them quickly. And I think, and I don't know how this factor would converge, but the fact that he didn't play for India or any national team meant that he would be available all the time.
Yes. Which is why the English players never got picked up, because they would only be available for 6 or 7 games.
Apart from Freddie Flintoff, I think, who went for a big sum.
And Kevin Peterson.
Because he's a professional now.
Yeah.
He's I think, the new upcoming breed of professional cricketers.
Professional T20 freelancers.
Yeah, that's what you can call them.
So yeah, I think the Freddie Flintoff auction was this one only, 2011. Or Freddie Flintoff, and there was one other. I think Kevin Peterson, Flintoff got a lot of money.
I think $2 million is the range that we are talking about.
And Flintoff never played a single game, I think, for Chennai Super Kings.
Yeah, I think the last I knew he played some mixed martial arts in the ring.
Yeah, he's into boxing now, yes. So yeah, Flintoff got paid a lot of money for that reason. But it was difficult.
For the boxing?
For being an all-rounder. So for people like Flintoff, it was difficult for us to whether to fit them as batsmen or bowlers, because our analysis required them to be good at one job first. So they required them to be primarily either a batsman or a bowler. So Flintoff is very difficult to fit into that category because he is the traditional. So
what happened to something like a Jock Callis, who was equally good at both?
So Jock Callis is primarily a batsman for statistically.
Well, if you consider his test statistics, he has more wickets than Zahir Khan and nearly as much runs as Sachin Tendulkar.
So, but his, if you look at his record, the batting record is far superior than his bowling record. So, which is why primarily he was
a batsman. So you would call him also bowl. Batsman who could bowl.
But Flintoff, you cannot call him a bowler who can bat. You cannot call him a batsman who can bowl. So that's why. But luckily for us, there were only a few of them. I think there was only one Flintoff. There was no one else like that. He is the traditional. All-rounder. Yes, traditional Imran Khan Botham kind of all-rounder
from the 80s.
Yes, so and we haven't had many of them since. So this was our analysis, and we looked at basic various stats for our regression analysis. And the one thing which turned out was that age was significantly important, and nationality, whether Indian, that was the most important aspect. And also all-rounders. So these were the 3 things which were important. And thanks a lot for talking to us.
Thank you so much, Kabir, for giving us these insights into the IPL auctions. So now we know what goes on the dining tables when they sit around for the auction. The next time, I think you can give us some insight on the BCCI elections. I think
we might get picked up for sedition.
Far more interesting topic, though they can't be put on air. Thank you so much once again. Please tune into Maths on Radio. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
स्किल्स में मैडम देखिए पढ़ाई अभी और भी आसान हो गई है। मस्त रेडियो लाया है मैथ्स ऑन रेडियो। तो आज से अपने दिल को बहलाइए हमारे मैथ्स के एपिसोड सुनते सुनते। लॉग इन करें www.mastradio.in यानी MUSTRADIO mastradio.in और लाइक करें हमारा फेसबुक पेज रेडियो मस्ट कम्युनिटी रेडियो। तो अब आपका दिल पढ़ने में जरूर लगेगा।
You are listening to Manjil Bhargava on 107.8 Must Radio. This is Math on Radio, Season 2.
कहते हैं कि दोस्त शून्य की तरह होते हैं। वैसे तो उनकी कीमत समझती नहीं, लेकिन जिससे जुड़ जाते हैं उनकी कीमतें बढ़ा देते हैं। ऐसे ही सभी दोस्तों के लिए मस्ट रेडियो लाया है मैथ्स ऑन रेडियो सीजन 2।
Maths on Radio, a program catalyzed and supported by National Council for Science and Technology Communication, Department of Science and Technology,